Am I going to need that? Ah. Okay. Jason, you got me in the frame? That's unfortunate. Okay. All right. Okay. Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm filling in today. Tom's going to be back as soon as he's back from his trip going to, where did he say he was going? Mexico? Oh, Canada. Okay. So Bill Ray went too, didn't he? Yeah. Ted Carpenter. We're going to have a good time. Who? Don Meter. Cool. Whole bunch of them, yeah. All right, well, what we're going to do today is trying to rack my brain as to what we were going to do. And I settled on something this morning simply because it's going to be going right into my sermon later on, kind of. More like a stepping stone. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the account of the Tower of Babel in Genesis chapter 11. And I don't think I'm too loud out in the hallway. I think I'm good. So if you would go ahead and open up your Bibles to Genesis chapter 11. We're going to be going through the first 9 verses there. That's the account, the famous account. And there's a lot of stuff there. We're going to be getting into some Jewish interpretation of it as well, what they thought. That'll be fun. So, question. Does anybody, this is a question just really for me, because I want to know. Does anybody think that this wasn't a literal account? Like it didn't actually literally happen? It's okay. You're not going to be shunned. Does everybody pretty much take this as a literal account? This is what actually happened. Okay. What's that?
I do think it's real because there's several accounts from different cultures explaining the same thing.
So what's really, really funny is, I don't know, no, I really do know why. People recently, in like the last, I would say 50 years, have looked at the first few chapters of Genesis chapter 1 through 11, and they would say something like, oh, well, it's all symbolic or it's all poetic, it's not actually literal history. But that's not how they would have taken it, and it's definitely not how it's communicated, especially when you get into the context of there are flood legends all over the world. There are Titan legends from Genesis chapter 6 with the giants all over the world. And there are Tower of Babel legends all over the world. Of course, it's not called the Tower of Babel all over the world, but there's a very good book by Bodie Hodge. If you ever wanted to read it, it's all about Tower of Babel. And he records in a big old chart here for you 23 different accounts from different cultures, different time periods of basically the same thing. Of course, they supply God's name for a whole bunch of different other deities, and they change up some of the details of the story because that's how myths and legends, they grow and adapt. You know, you put your own spin on it, kind of thing. And that's what you find. That's not even all of them. There's a lot more than just 23 of the same types of accounts of some God coming down to disperse humanity and give them all different languages. It's just very, very striking. Now, I think that personally, especially when you get to the fact that, yeah, there's flood legends all over the world. There's ark legends all over the world with Noah and everything. There's giant legends all over the world, and there's Tower of Babel legends all over the world. I think that Genesis 11, I think this is why they are all over the world. And I think this is why all of those similar tales with the floods and giants and arks and everything, this is why they all have their own different spin on it. Because we know what happens. Spoiler alert, okay? We know that God comes in and he changes all of their languages and then he spreads them out all over the world. Now, imagine you're one of those people that happened to. How would you describe what happened? It's not like God when he came down, told you, hey, this is what's going on, this is what's going to happen, it wasn't that clear. It was actually probably pretty much instantaneous for them. So when all of these people disperse all over the world, you're going to have your own spin on it kind of thing. And all of their other ancient history as well. They would have all heard the legends about Noah and the flood and the giants and all that stuff. So what are they going to do? They're going to put their own spin on it, down to the very essence of the creation lore itself. They're going to put their own spin on it. And I think it's because of the Tower of Babel that we have all of these different takes on what happened at the beginning of human history. So with that said, we are going to go ahead and get into the text today. I'm going to read verse 1 for you. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. Now when you look at that verse, there's not a whole lot of things that stand out. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Of course, we know the trajectory of the passage here. We know that it's going to get bad. But that in and of itself is not a bad thing. So when we look into our time today, and we're seeing all these developments in technology and stuff that help us easily communicate with one another, don't be one of those that say, well, that's a bad thing. We shouldn't be doing that. No, not the point. Not the point at all. So let's go to verse 2. And the people migrated from the east. They found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. Okay. Two things. Number one, the people. Who are the people? What people? Look at the preceding chapter. Look at verse 32. What people are we talking about? Sons of Noah, which would have branched off because they had extraordinarily long lifespans. You would have had thousands, hundreds of thousands of human beings in a very short amount of time because of just how long they lived. These are all coming from Noah. These are all his sons, his daughters, his grandsons, his granddaughters, all of them. This is all of the people on the earth. That's the context. Okay? Now, where's the land of Shinar? Does anybody know? Anybody? Babylonia. Okay, where's that? Oh. Okay. East of Israel, you said? Okay. I'll give you another hint. It is northern Babylon, what would be considered northern Babylon. But it goes by a different... Thank you. Love you. Yep, absolutely. Yep, it would be in the realm region of what would be considered today modern Iraq. Okay, give or take a few miles. So, verse 3. Any questions on verse 2? No? Okay, verse 3. They said to one another, we might even do verses 3 and 4 together. They said to one another, come, let us make bricks. Burn them thoroughly. And so they had bricks for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. Okay, here's the mission statement, right? Here's the plan. I actually forgot to mention something earlier. No. That would be shooting myself in the foot. We'll wait until later. So, what do you notice about their mission statement, their plan? What did they want to do by their own admission? They wanted to be hotshots, make a name for themselves. Okay? What does that mean? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? What's that? It's an arrogant thing, absolutely. Yep. So, if you look at the context of the Old Testament, who's the only one that has the right to make a name for themselves? Himself. There's your hint. God. All throughout the Old Testament, you see references to something about the name of God, Hashem, the name of God. Because the name of God is the only name that's worthy of being lifted up. And these humans, right at the beginning of human history, would see this, and they didn't like that. They didn't like that at all. They wanted to make a name for themselves. I brought some goodies this morning. I like to get into a bunch of ancient literature when it comes to reading this stuff. I want to know what Jewish people in the first century and even before that, what did they think about these texts? What were their interpretations? And there's some fun stuff I wanted to share with you. So it's not necessarily said here, but it is more implied. How are they going to make a name for themselves? By building a tower? What's that going to do? It's underlying. It's kind of implied. If you're going to make a name for yourself, you're going to do something great. And in most cultural context, in order to make a name for yourself, you're going to do what? Fight. You're going to fight and make a name for yourself. You're going to vanquish an enemy to make a name for yourself. Who's the enemy they want to vanquish? It's as bad as you think. There's your hint. Very good. Yes. This is how all of the ancient Jews pretty much interpreted this. I want to go ahead and read a few passages for you. One's out of the book of Jasher, okay? The book of Jasher, very ancient book. It's actually referenced in 2 Samuel and in the book of Judges. Now, there's a lot of controversy about this. This is a whole class by itself. It's not scripture, folks. It's just Jewish writing. If you were to go to a Christian bookstore, you would know something that was very helpful in learning more about Christianity, but you knew it wasn't scripture. So another way to put this is, if I was to open up a history book, would I know that it contained truth? Yes. Would I know that it's not scripture? Right. Exactly. And that's the way that we should look at these books, and Josephus, which we'll get into in a second. I want to read this passage from the book of Jasher. Here's what it says, and their interpretation, whoever wrote this down. The building of the tower was unto them a transgression and a sin, and they began to build it. And whilst they were building against the Lord God of heaven, there's your first hint, they imagined in their hearts to war against him and to ascend into heaven. And all these people and all their families divided themselves in three parts. The first said, we will ascend into heaven and fight against him. The second said, we will ascend into heaven and place our own gods there and serve them. And the third part said, we will ascend to heaven and smite him with bows and spears. That's the book of Jasher. Now I want to read Josephus. I've actually just recently undergone this personal little fun project for me. I always treat Josephus as reference material. Well, I'm not going to do that. Right now, I'm actually working through all of the antiquities of the Jews. I'm going to read the whole thing. And that's like almost Bible length. But check back up on me here in about 2 years, and I'll tell you where I am. But right at the beginning of Josephus' works here, he's got two things that are explained about what the Jews thought about the Tower of Babel and what happened. So here's Nimrod. This is according to Josephus, so, take it or leave it kind of thing. But I just find it interesting. He also said he being Nimrod here, he also said he would be revenged on God if he should have a mind to drown the world again. For that he would build a tower too high for the waters to be able to reach, and that he would avenge himself on God for destroying their forefathers. That's funny. It's cute when we know the rest of the story. It's just cute. But anyways, so what are they trying to do? I think it's very much implied in the biblical text and by Jewish interpretation that when they said, let's make a name for ourselves, they were planning on going against God. If you look at ancient worship, ancient even pagan worship, and you see this all throughout the Bible, the pagans would try and build up high places, because they thought the higher that you get, the higher you get into the spiritual realms, you can kind of communicate with the gods. This was the whole point behind Mount Olympus. Remember, the gods were up there on a mountain and everything. And so this is why they're trying to build the tower. They're trying to get up to his throne. Now, that's not how dimensional realities work, of course. You're not going to be able to keep on going up, and one day, if Elon Musk gets us to Mars, that would be really, really cool. We're not going to be able to go out among the stars further and further and further and further in a straight line and then eventually find God. That's not how it works. God is a God of magnitude and power. He is outside of the realm of time and space itself. He created the law, what we call the laws of physics. He's outside of it all. He's not bound by those things. We are. So it's just really, really kind of cute to see them trying to build a tower to get up to God. There was another Jewish interpreter. I can't remember exactly who he was, but they interpreted that when they had built this tower, they got up to the top and they started like launching bows up at the sky. And when I hear that, I automatically think of this. I think it was, Terry, you actually might be able to help me with this, brother. It was either a Greek or a Roman general who just suffered a loss in ancient history out at the sea. And he commanded all the soldiers to go to the shore and start stabbing the water, trying to kill Poseidon. It's cute, right? I can't remember who that was. Do you remember? Yeah, I can't remember who that was. I should have had that ready, but it's hilarious. Excuse me. So, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. Any comments or questions on this so far? Any observations you want to share with the rest of the class? No? Come on, this is fun stuff, people. It's crazy history. I often think of, how boring our lives are and everything like that. It's not boring. We have the most interesting history literally ever. It's so much fun. So that's what they want to do. They want to rebel against God. Okay. Verse 5. This is where it gets funny, even more than it has been. In just the first few words here, verse 5, and the Lord came down to see the city and the tower. Why is that funny? Why is that funny? I mean, that's true. Yeah, he doesn't have to come down to see it. Absolutely. Right. But why is it funny? It is funny. They're trying to build upwards, right? They're trying to get to him. And God has to come down. What are y'all doing down there? It's like back when I preached on the Tower of Babel, it's like if you had a bunch of ants trying to build an ant mound to try and get up to slap you in the face. And so what do you have to do? Oh, that's cute. Look at that. You have to bend over just to see him. That's what it's like to God. This is just silliness. In fact, that kind of silliness is repeated in the Bible, especially in Psalm 2, where you have all of these human beings who are warring against God. Let's burst their chains apart. Let's not even listen to God and to his anointed, which of course we know is a reference to Jesus. And it says in the text that he who sits in heaven laughs because it's funny. It's funny. God has a sense of humor. If you don't think he does, read more of the Bible. He's got a great sense of humor. It is quite funny. So he comes down to see the city and the tower and the children of man, that the children of man had built. Verse 6, and the Lord said, behold, they are one people. Is that a bad thing? No, not inherently, only within a certain context. They are one people, and they all have one language. Is that a bad thing? No, only within a certain context. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. You think God was lying when he said that? Do you think he was exaggerating? It's possible. I'm going to leave that into the realm of possibility, that he was being poetic in his exaggeration. But when I read something like that God said nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them, I like to think about all of the scientific advancements that we've made just over the past 500 years. 500 years is nothing compared to human history. That's not a whole lot of time, folks. We just have short lives, that's all. If you, no, I'm not going to pick out the oldest person in here. I'm not going to ask who's the oldest. However, were you born in 1960 or around there? Yeah, right.
Are you looking for a hand to be raised?
I'm looking for a hand to be raised. Because I need to ask somebody a question. Okay. Cliff, if you would have said, or somebody would have said to your 15-year-old self, in the future, we're going to have self-driving cars. We're going to have these little tiny screens that we poke on all day, and they're touch screens. There's no real buttons on it. You can make calls from it. You can search this wonderful thing called the internet, play games on it, and have a calculator on it that can do these impossible mathematic equations. And that and many more things. Would you have believed them? No, not at all. Would you have believed yourself? You would have? You hope for that? Well, yeah, that puts a different light on things. Absolutely, sure. Now, if you're a sci-fi geek like me, even when I was a teenager, which I get it, wasn't that long ago, like 15 years ago. I wanted that too. I wanted nothing but technological advancement and everything. But then as I grew and I matured, I realized, as we're actually going to be getting into the sermon today, I realized just what kind of peril comes with technological advancement and how dangerous it's about to get in our world. Very dangerous. And I believe God when he says nothing that they propose to do will not be impossible for them. That's not necessarily a bad phrase either. It's only bad in its certain context where you have humanity rebelling against God and evil for their own glory and worship. That's why it's bad. Think about the nuclear bomb. I just read this book last year called Nuclear War by Annie Jacobson. I couldn't put the thing down. I was reading like 80 pages a day. And I'm not really a fast reader. I read a lot, but I'm not a fast reader. I could not put this book down. And when I realized just what a nuclear bomb is, any size, any magnitude, what it is, what it does, what it's capable of doing even after the explosion with nuclear fallout, it is scary, scary stuff. Of course, we can get into CERN, the Large Hadron Collider that's in Geneva, Switzerland, and what they're trying to do with that, the particle accelerator going on. Cool stuff, but as soon as you talk about, let's make a little tiny black hole and see if we can go ahead and go into another dimension. Stop it! What are you doing? Stop it! It's scary stuff, and so I believe them. When humanity is united together against God only for the purpose of evil and self-glorification, it gets ugly, and so that's why God steps in here, and he says, no, absolutely not. So God is going to, in verse 7, he's going to say this, come, let us go down. Who's us there, by the way? Who's going down there? Who said, verse 5, who came down? Yahweh, God. And then it says, come, let us go down there. Little hint to the Trinity there, right? Let us go down, and there confuse their language so that they may not understand one another's speech. What's the tactical advantage to that? Why do that? Why did God have to give everybody a different language? Question. I want to hear. I want to learn. Why? Why? Listen here, I'm going to come up there and smack you in the face. Yeah. Go ahead.
Because when Catherine talks to me in French, I don't know what she said telling me to do. I told her wisdom teeth that she was talking to me in French. I don't know what she needed.
That's fantastic. Really?
Yeah.
She's talking to you in French?
Yes.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
She needed something, but in her brain, under the haze of the anesthetic, she was talking to me in French. I didn't know what she wanted. I couldn't help my child.
Oh, bro.
And
That's
Jason
great.
was getting fed, so he couldn't help me either.
Right. Man. Why confuse their language, though? Why do it? So you can't what? You can't work together. You can't work together. Now, when human beings, here's my take on it. When human beings get together in large bodies of people, we are terrible influences on ourselves. Look, it's a reality. Look at the morality of cities compared to looking at the morality of those who dwell in more rural and sometimes suburban areas. There's a morality difference going on. We cannot like it, but it's just true. The statistics are all there. It's when we get together in a group, we're terrible, terrible influences on ourselves. And Romans 1 actually backs that kind of thing up because it says right at the end, probably verse 31 or 32. Actually, let me just read it just so I'm quoting it correctly. Romans 1, 32, though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things, all the things he just got done listing, haters of God, unrighteousness, evil, faithless, heartless, those who practice such things deserve to die. They not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them. We pat each other on the back. We say, hey, I know your conscience messing with you about doing this bad thing. Don't worry about it, okay? Don't worry about it. It'll go away kind of thing. Human beings, when we get around each other and we're full of the drive to follow sin and not God, we're terrible, terrible influences on ourselves. So that's just kind of my take on why he confused other speech. Go ahead, Terry. Mm-hmm. Sure. That's a good point. Right. Right. Yeah. Right. It's easier to disconnect compassion and truth from that individual. No obligation. Right. Oh, man, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. That's a good one. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And I know that moment has hit me too in the past few years where you realize you're just never going to see somebody again. So that's why whenever I'm in the car with the kids and my wife, I'll make funny faces at the drivers passing us by. And she'll like duck down in their seat. Stop doing that. I'm never going to see him again. So, funny twist on it. Next stop. Wait. I did just prove my point and your point as well. Yeah, absolutely. I'm never going to see him again. Yeah. She gets so embarrassed when I do that. Love you, baby. What's that? Actually, now that you mention it, remember that one time I took you to your surgery and I was doing this funny accent when we were ordering your food? You don't remember? You probably blocked it out of your memory. I was at the speaker and I was doing this weird accent, And I was in the passenger seat, he's in the driver's seat, and I'm sitting there ordering food in this weird accent so that when we pull up, all they see is him. Job done. Anyways. So, okay, all right. Back to the text, verse 7. Come, let us go down there, confuse their language so that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of all of the earth. They left off building the city. Okay, besides the reality that we're not good influences on ourselves with no moral direction when we abandon God and follow our own moral code, why then disperse human beings? Now, at this point, you can only get into educated guesses and something that is implied through the text. But that's okay. Why do you think? You gonna Google it?
No.
Oh, okay.
But earlier, it's like, let us build the city, lest we be scattered. So, what does God do? What they didn't want.
What they didn't want. That's
If you're going to try to do this, which is wrong,
uh-huh.
I'm going to give you a consequence you don't want.
Right. It's very good. Yeah. Why disperse them all over the earth? What was the mandate given to humanity at the beginning of time? Huh? Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. Why? Greatest question you could ever ask when you're studying the Bible. Why? Why? Besides, it's good to obey God. Yeah, absolutely. I'm there. But why? There's always a reason. What did he tell Adam in the garden? What was he to have over the plants, the animals? Dominion. And what was he to do with this dominion? Was he supposed to lift himself up, have all the creatures look to him like he was God? No. What was he to do? Point to God himself. He was a representative of God there on earth. That's what human beings are. We are created in God's image. Okay? So this is God forcing them to obey at least part of the command, to fill the earth. It's like, you're not going to do it by yourself. You're going to go ahead and just congregate in one area. Watch this. Disperses them all. Now, why disperse them all over the earth, though, besides fulfilling that command? If God is to have true glory in this world, his name must be proclaimed in all the earth. All of it. Every single bit of it. In fact, later on in the Old Testament, that's why I'm a post-millennial, you'll see in the Old Testament how the promise is always getting back to that. The name of God will be glorified in the earth as much as the waters cover the sea. That statement shows up like 3 or 4 times in the Old Testament. Leviticus, Psalms, Numbers, Micah. Is it Micah or Malachi? I can't remember. But it's all over the place. Giving God glory by praising his name, taking dominion, being his image bearers, his representatives here on earth. That's what they were supposed to do. That's what human beings are supposed to be. We are envoys. We are a royal messenger of the king. We're not some inconsequential species. We actually mean something pretty important to God. Pretty important. I just had this conversation with myself this week. I was thinking about Jesus' death and everything that I went through, why God would choose to come here, take on the form of a servant, a human, live a righteous life for me, die for me. Why do that? Seriously, why? He doesn't need us. Why? We're important and he loves us. We're important and he loves us. It's both. It's both. You are important. You are a moral creature. You choose between right and wrong. You decide between right and wrong. You are judges. Every single one of you. We have no indication that God gave that role to angels. We do know he gave it to us. We do know that in In 1 Corinthians, Paul talks about how we're going to be judging the angels. We are creatures of morality. It is our job to choose between right and wrong, which, of course, getting back to Genesis, only emphasizes how bad it was that we were introduced to right and wrong at the wrong time. We weren't ready for choosing between good and evil. We weren't ready for it. When you see a kid finally decide and discover right and wrong is bad because they'll choose the bad. Why? Because the maturity levels weren't there yet. It's quite possible we were eventually going to eat from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil when God said, not yet, when we were kind of ready for it and had maturity. Satan came in and said, no, go ahead and eat from it now. You won't die. Trust me. And we judged that the serpent was trustworthy and not God. We're going to be judges in the eternal realms. We're going to be creatures of morality forever, being image bearers of God, because that's what God does. He chooses between right and wrong. He says, this is right, this is wrong. And us mirroring God, we're going to say, God's right, this is right, and this is wrong. Not what they're doing. Not, I want to decide right and wrong. See what I mean? So cool and so deep. So cool and so deep. So the Lord dispersed them from over the face of the whole earth. Got to wrap it up here in a minute. They left off the building of the city. Therefore, its name was called Babel, because there Yahweh confused the language of all the earth. And from there, the Lord dispersed them over the face of all the earth. So Babel there is given a definition. Hebrew, it means confusion or confused. So, okay, I want you to share with me what you think. Is there anything that I missed? Any good points to bring out in this text? Let's learn together. Cindy, what do you got? Yeah. Yeah, that would have been scary. Yeah. That would have been like a massive shock. You know, it might even been you're talking to somebody, and then all of a sudden their language changes, and then poof, they're gone. That would have been crazy. So, anyways, how you like the weather today? Anarche and Halaga, boom, gone. That would have been crazy and scary. And the scariest part would have been you got no explanation. God doesn't have to explain himself. You did wrong. I'm sorry, that's it, kiddo. That would have been just as scary. Got no explanation. Man, wild stuff. I love our history. I love our spiritual history so much. It's so cool. So cool. Okay, any other thoughts? Questions or comments? Nothing? Oh, what do you got, Terry? Yeah, go ahead, buddy. Uh-huh. Thank you, sir. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Always. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Right. Good comments. Good comments. Thanks, Uncle Ben. Yeah. Great power comes great responsibility. Right? You know, you ever observe people who are, what this called is, it's called postmodernism. There's no objective truth. It's all subjective. No one gets to decide right and wrong except for you, your truth. They never live it out consistently. They want it only for some things. They know if they wander into traffic, the objective reality is they're going to get run over. That's it. So it's not even necessarily about, is there objective truth, yes or no? It's about, I don't want there to be objective truth on certain things that I want. That's what it is. That's what it always has been. Okay. Any other comments or questions? No? Hey, 30 seconds left. Come on, what do you got? Okay. All right, thank you all. Tom's going to be here next week doing he's going to be doing some stuff. Oh, yeah, he's teaching through Thessalonians, I believe. First and second, I think it was. First and second. And then I'm getting ready to I think it's next week. I'm going to check with Ted July. I'm getting ready to start like a Christianity 101 class in the fellowship hall between the teens and if you're a new believer. Okay? If you're a new believer and want to know more about the faith, that kind of thing. Okay? So I'm not saying if you are a seasoned, experienced believer, don't come in there. But if you are a seer, so just keep that in mind. Love y'all. Good stuff, okay?